Have you ever felt that quiet tension the moment you enter a room and realize power isn't where the noise is, but in the silence watching it? The calm face that reveals nothing, yet sees everything. I've learned that real control doesn't shout. It waits. It studies. It chooses the moment no one expects. Stay close, because what comes next will change how you move forever. As we step into the first chapter, imagine this: a crowded room filled with voices competing for attention. Some speak louder, some try to dominate, and yet the air bends around the one who says nothing. Their silence carries weight. Their calm unsettles the noise. In a world where chaos passes for confidence, quiet presence becomes the sharpest weapon. The Stoics knew this long before empires rose and fell. They understood that true command isn't found in how much you speak, it's in how little you need to. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." That is the essence of stillness. When the world demands reaction, the wise man offers restraint. Now imagine someone insulting you in front of others, mocking your ideas, laughing at your calm. The untrained mind burns to answer back, to prove worth through words. But the disciplined one watches. He studies the space between insult and reaction. He knows that what he withholds is as powerful as what he could unleash. The louder they shout, the more they reveal their fear. The quicker they threaten, the more they expose their insecurity. But the one who speaks little, who lets presence do the talking, moves with a force that cannot be borrowed or faked. You see, silence is not emptiness. It's precision. It's the art of waiting until words become unnecessary. As we move deeper, think of power not as noise, but as gravity, the kind that pulls attention without asking for it. The Stoic doesn't chase control, he becomes it. He stands unmoved while the world trembles around him. To those watching, that calm becomes both comfort and intimidation. It makes them question what lies beneath. And that's the beauty of it. Silence provokes imagination. It forces others to wrestle not with your words, but with their own thoughts about you. In that mirror, they see their doubt, their envy, their weakness. You've said nothing, and yet they feel seen. There's a story of a Roman general who won wars without drawing his sword. He studied the enemy, learned their rhythm, and waited. When he finally moved, it was not in rage, but in rhythm with inevitability. That is what stillness gives you: timing. You stop reacting like the world expects you to, and instead begin to move when the outcome is already certain. This kind of strength is not born in comfort. It is forged through humiliation, long nights of self-restraint, and the bitter taste of patience. Every time you wanted to lash out but didn't. Every time you felt misunderstood but chose silence over argument. Each of those moments built you. Here's where most falter. They mistake silence for surrender. But silence, when chosen, is strategy. It's not a lack of response, it's a calculated one. Seneca said, "He who is brave is free." The man who does not react instantly to provocation is freer than any conqueror. He's not bound by emotion. He's not at the mercy of others' noise. He owns himself, and by owning himself, he owns the moment. Real power moves quietly beneath the surface. It does not need applause to exist. It does not need validation to grow. It moves in shadows, watches 10 steps ahead while others stumble over the next one. Now imagine entering a meeting or a conversation where everyone is eager to speak first. You wait, you listen, you let their impatience reveal them. And when you finally speak, it's with such calm precision that the entire room shifts. You didn't demand attention, you commanded it. That is how stillness turns into influence, not through words, but through presence. The world will always reward those who can resist the urge to show their hand. For every person who craves attention, there is one who earns respect by withholding it. Moving into the next truth, remember this: mastery is not about knowing more, but needing less. When you no longer have to prove yourself, you've already proven everything. The man who has conquered his tongue has conquered his mind, and the man who has conquered his mind has no equal. When you reach that point, insults become echoes, noise fades into silence, and attention follows you naturally. You don't have to fight for it. You've become it. So let them talk, let them doubt. Let them wonder what you're thinking while you already know what they'll do next. You don't owe anyone an explanation for your peace. You don't need to chase recognition to validate your power. The Stoics called this apatheia, freedom from disturbance. Once you've mastered silence, you've mastered yourself. And when you've mastered yourself, there's nothing left for anyone to use against you. This is where we begin to see that the game of life is not about out-shouting others. It's about outlasting them. It's about becoming so steady, so disciplined that even chaos bends to your rhythm. When you walk into a room and people turn to look, not because you demand it, but because your composure unsettles their noise, that's when you know you've crossed from reaction to command, from impulse to intention, from noise to power. And that, my friend, is where the silent truly begin to speak. Moving into the next lesson, the air shifts. This is where battles are won long before a word is spoken. The Stoics knew that perception is not illusion, it is power. The truth alone rarely decides an outcome. What matters is how truth appears in the eyes of those who watch. People don't respond to reality. They respond to what they believe is reality. That belief is shaped by what they see, what they sense, what you allow them to notice. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." But the same is true of perception. The world dyes its judgment with the color of your composure. Before you open your mouth, you've already told the room who you are. Now imagine this. You're standing in a heated discussion. Tempers flare, voices clash, and all eyes search for the next eruption. But you, still, grounded, unreadable. No flicker of fear, no rush to defend, no crack in the surface. That calm becomes a mirror that unsettles the noise. The louder they speak, the smaller they feel. The more they rush to prove themselves, the more you appear unshakable. And that hesitation, that brief flicker of doubt in their eyes, is your silent victory. Because the one who can master appearance has already set the tone of the battlefield. It's not about being right. It's not even about being stronger. It's about looking composed when others fall apart. A Stoic understands this deeply. Control over oneself is control over perception. The man who governs his expression governs the story others tell about him. Emotional chaos repels power. Inner stillness radiates it. I once watched a seasoned negotiator handle a meeting that had turned volatile. Accusations flew. Voices rose. He didn't respond with anger. He leaned back, clasped his hands, and let the silence weigh heavy in the room. The tension broke, not because he argued, but because others began to hear their own noise. His calm forced them to question their footing. He didn't fight. He let them undo themselves. That is discipline disguised as patience. Here's where the Stoic and the strategist meet. Machiavelli wrote that men judge more by the eye than by the hand. The Stoics would agree, though they'd add this: let what they see reflect mastery, not manipulation. You don't need to deceive. You need only to choose your demeanor with intention. The one who can remain composed when chaos surrounds him becomes mythic in the minds of others. In a world addicted to display, the one who does not perform becomes the most feared. You don't need to crush anyone. You only need to let them reveal themselves while you remain unmoved. Advancing to the next level, this is where perception evolves into strategy. True power doesn't clash directly, it reshapes the field itself. The Stoics taught us to control what lies within our reach, and while the minds of others are beyond it, the environment they move in is not. A direct confrontation may look bold, but more often it's a trap. You trigger ego, resistance, chaos. The wise don't collide with another's nature. They design the conditions that guide it. Think of it like water shaping stone, quiet, persistent, inevitable. The master tactician doesn't destroy his opponent's pieces, he controls the board. Imagine you're dealing with someone who resists every idea you bring forward. You don't argue, you shift the terrain, you change the timing, the sequence, the context. A rescheduled meeting, a small change in access, a subtle adjustment in who gets to speak first. One by one, the supports they rely on begin to weaken, not by attack, but by design. Before they realize what's happened, they're reacting to the rhythm you created. They believe they're acting freely, but every road now leads to the outcome you've already chosen. That's not cruelty, it's clarity. It's the art of influence through precision. Seasoned Stoics understood this. Epictetus reminded his students that we cannot control external events, only how we shape our response to them. But when you extend that principle outward, it becomes mastery over context. The Stoic leader governs not with orders, but with environment, with conditions so well designed that the right choice becomes the only choice. You tilt the floor, you alter the light, you let others move naturally into your design. When they finally sense what's changed, the outcome is already sealed. At this stage, you begin to understand that the battlefield is not a place, it's perception itself. The man who controls the environment no longer needs to control people. He influences outcomes without confrontation, guides direction without command. This is not domination, it's orchestration. It's mastery of the unseen levers that move the visible world. Success here is subtle. It's measured not by applause, but by how little you had to force. You didn't win by volume, you won by gravity. You stopped reacting and began shaping, and in that quiet control lies the truest form of dominance, not over others, but over the structure itself. Entering the next chapter, the air feels heavier, like the calm before a storm that no one sees coming. In a world obsessed with projection, where strength must roar and dominance must dazzle, the most dangerous move is often silence. To appear harmless is not a flaw, it is a weapon sharpened by wisdom. The Stoics taught that a wise man does not announce his strength. He keeps it hidden, disciplined, and under control. Seneca once said, "The greatest remedy for anger is delay." That delay, that stillness, that refusal to rush, it is what separates the wise from the reckless. The predator who announces himself invites caution, but the one who limps, who bows slightly, who allows himself to be underestimated, invites carelessness. And it is within carelessness that opportunity is born. Now imagine walking into a room full of people trying to prove themselves. They flex, they brag, they talk over each other. You say little, you observe, you nod when needed, but reveal nothing. They see humility. What they don't see is how much you're calculating behind those calm eyes. You are not surrendering. You are setting the stage. You are not being submissive. You are drawing out their arrogance, their need to dominate, to overreach. Once they believe you're beneath them, they stop guarding what matters most, their awareness. They lower their defenses. They speak freely, too freely. And in that moment, you see their map, their weak points, their motives. The Stoics would call this composure, not deceit. It's the art of letting the opponent move first, not because you're afraid, but because you understand what Epictetus meant when he said, "No great thing is created suddenly. Power takes patience." Here's where humility becomes armor. When you appear small, others relax. When you don't rush to defend, they believe you have nothing worth protecting. When you play the fool, they reveal what they think is hidden. To feign weakness is not to be weak, it is to master perception. You lull the room into comfort while you prepare. You are not losing, you are aligning timing with clarity. The Stoics believed that true strength waits beneath the surface, cloaked in calmness, until precision matters more than volume. The sword drawn too soon dulls in the wrong battle, but the one kept sheathed until necessity cuts deepest. That is mastery. You let them mock you, you let them underestimate you, and then, when the right moment comes, you strike, not with fury, but with focus, not to destroy, but to end. The sound that follows is not victory, it's silence, and in that silence they finally understand what they never saw coming. From here, patience transforms into decisiveness. There comes a point where restraint must give way to clarity. When confrontation becomes necessary, let it be final. Half measures don't keep the peace, they prolong the war. The Stoics remind us that mercy without clarity is not virtue, it's negligence. And negligence has a price. A wounded adversary doesn't disappear. He retreats, he heals, he plans. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy," and yet he also knew that to end conflict, you must close it completely. When you strike, do not leave open threads. Do not leave shared ground, no blurred lines. Finish it in such a way that no sequel can follow. This doesn't always mean destruction in the literal sense. It means psychological closure. It means removing their influence, cutting their access, ending their narrative. I've seen it in business, in politics, in personal life. The one who hesitates, who leaves a door open for peace that was never real, ends up fighting the same war twice. The one who finishes with precision never has to lift his sword again. In your personal life, this might mean walking away in silence, without farewells or explanations. In leadership, it might mean outmaneuvering not only the rival, but their support system, until they lose relevance on their own. It's not cruelty, it's discipline, because when you end things cleanly, you protect your peace. You're not punishing anyone, you're preventing tomorrow's chaos. At this stage, remember, decisiveness is not aggression, it's freedom. The truly untouchable don't leave loose ends. They don't replay battles they've already won. The moment you hesitate, they rebuild. The moment you show leniency, they scheme. And the moment you offer a second chance, they see your weakness. Decisiveness is the shield that keeps you from returning to the same field twice. So finish it, not with malice, but with mastery. Not for ego, but for peace. Because when no one dares to continue the conflict, that's when you've won. Not just the battle, but your freedom from it. Advancing into the quiet aftermath, there's a kind of power that doesn't shout, doesn't strike, and yet leaves the deepest mark. The kind born not from retaliation, but reflection. The Stoics taught that control over others begins with control over oneself. When you reach that level, you don't need to force fear, it reflects naturally. As Epictetus said, "You may fetter my leg, but not even Zeus himself can overpower my will." That is the essence of invisible strength. Your silence becomes a mirror, and in it, others see the truth of their own unease. They realize you never needed to defeat them. They've already defeated themselves. And that is how power, real power, moves without sound. Entering the quietest chapter, this is where true power hides. In silence so heavy it begins to speak. Because fear does not come from the threats we make. It comes from the silence that forces others to face themselves. When you raise your voice, people defend their pride. They armor their minds and build excuses. But when you say nothing, when you simply hold your gaze and let the air stretch thin, they begin to crumble beneath their own imagination. That is the kind of influence no words can buy. It's the pause that lingers, the absence that grows louder than presence. Now imagine standing before someone who wronged you. They expect reaction, anger, argument, justification. But you offer none, just stillness. Their confidence starts to waver. Questions creep in. What is he thinking? What will he do? And in that space of uncertainty, your presence multiplies. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike your enemy." And what's more unlike them than peace in the face of provocation? The Stoics understood this. Stillness is not the absence of power. It's the concealment of it. You don't need to move mountains. You only need to move their mind. Silence exposes more than words ever could. In your calm, they begin to see their own reflection, their guilt, their insecurity, their hidden motives. You give them no confirmation, no denial, no reaction, and in that void, they begin to fill the blanks with their own fears. The human mind cannot sit still inside uncertainty. It must create answers. It must solve the riddle. And when there are no clues, it turns inward. They begin to see shadows where there are none, threats where there is only stillness. Every quiet second becomes a question. Every unspoken word becomes a verdict. That's when your power takes root, not in control, but in discipline. Epictetus said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." A wise man learns to let others' imagination work for him. The one who panics in silence reveals what he fears most. And that revelation, unguarded, involuntary, is worth more than any confession. I once watched a leader handle betrayal within his ranks. He didn't yell. He didn't confront. He simply stopped responding. Days passed. The guilty one couldn't stand the quiet. He began explaining, defending, confessing, unprovoked. The silence broke him open. It wasn't cruelty. It was clarity. The Stoics would call it self-mastery, the art of letting others undo themselves without lifting a hand. Here's where stillness becomes strategy. When you don't react, you take away their map. People rely on your movement to guide theirs. When you stop moving, they lose direction. They stumble in uncertainty, building entire narratives to make sense of your calm. And the more they invent, the deeper they trap themselves. Machiavelli once wrote that a ruler should appear capable of great consequences, even if those consequences never come. The Stoic would add, the possibility is more powerful than the promise, because when fear is born from imagination, it has no ceiling, no limit, no end. They do the work for you. In a world addicted to reaction, stillness is rebellion. When you don't respond, you don't feed chaos. When you don't retaliate, you don't give them direction. and without direction, their fear spirals inward. They start to imagine every outcome, every punishment, every consequence, and it all begins to happen inside them. You're not haunting them. They're haunting themselves. That is why restraint is the most precise weapon of all. It does not injure the body. It tests the mind. It shows who can endure uncertainty and who cannot. Think about it. The strongest kind of fear is not shouted into existence. It's whispered in silence. A Stoic does not create panic through violence or vengeance. He lets others face what they've always feared, themselves, the guilt they buried, the ambition they twisted, the motives they tried to hide. All of it rises in the quiet, because silence is the only mirror that doesn't lie. You don't have to destroy your enemies. You only need to let them look too long into the reflection they've avoided. At this stage, your restraint becomes your armor. You no longer rely on words to assert control. You no longer need to threaten or prove. You become unreadable and therefore untouchable. The Stoics lived by this law: control what is within, and the world will reveal itself. Because the more you control your reaction, the more you control the story being written about you. Stillness becomes command. Calm becomes control. Your lack of response shapes the space between you and them, and that space becomes your domain. I've seen it countless times. Those who rush to defend themselves lose power. Those who wait, who let silence breathe, watch as truth unveils itself without force. Patience is not passivity, it's mastery over time. It's the discipline of letting things unfold according to nature, not impulse. Seneca said, "He who is brave is free," and there is no bravery greater than remaining calm while others lose themselves to noise. You free yourself the moment you realize that silence doesn't mean weakness. It means choice. It means control. So hold the mirror. Let them see what they fear. Let them battle ghosts that exist only in their own imagination. You don't have to dominate them through fear. You let them fear what's already inside. That is the kind of control no threat can match. Because the fear born from within follows them everywhere, in silence, in sleep, in the rooms where your name isn't even spoken. That is the quiet reach of restraint. That is the unseen strength of the Stoic mind. In the end, it's not your power that makes you untouchable, it's your peace, your ambiguity, and the realization that sometimes the most commanding presence is the one that doesn't move at all. At this stage, let's talk about the kind of strength that rarely makes noise, the kind that doesn't rush, doesn't beg, and doesn't need to prove. Patience. In a world drunk on speed, addicted to instant results and obsessed with reaction, patience isn't just rare, it's revolutionary. The Stoics practiced it as a form of inner warfare, the mastery of time. Because time, when wielded wisely, is more devastating than any sword. The wise don't rush into battle. They don't strike because they're provoked. They wait. They observe. They calculate. They understand that the one who controls time controls the outcome. Marcus Aurelius said, "The nearer a man comes to a calm mind, the closer he is to strength." And calm is impossible without patience. Now imagine someone wronging you, humiliating you, trying to drag you into the mud. Your heart races. Your mind screams for revenge. Every part of you wants to respond, but you don't. You hold the silence like a blade sheathed in discipline. You let time do what rage cannot. Because urgency, this desperate need to act now, is the enemy of clarity. It burns your energy. It blinds your judgment. It makes you play their game on their timeline. But patience, real patience, turns the battlefield to your favor. When they scream, you stay quiet. When they lunge, you step back. And when they think they've pushed you into a corner, you let them overreach. Their arrogance becomes their undoing. That's where time begins to serve you. It isolates. It exposes. It magnifies mistakes until your enemies destroy themselves with their own impatience. The Stoics called this self-command the highest form of power. It's the mark of someone who doesn't flinch under pressure, who doesn't need validation, who can sit in discomfort without losing direction. Epictetus reminded his students that no man is free who is not master of himself. And mastery takes time. It's not about waiting idly, it's about watching actively. It's the art of seeing without moving, letting the noise of the world run itself tired while you grow sharper in the stillness. Those who confuse patience for passivity will never understand how silence can win wars, because the one who waits does not lose time, he stretches it. Here's a truth that only experience can teach. Urgency is the disguise of weakness, the need to prove, to respond, to be seen. It's the opposite of power. The wise let the storm pass before they move. They know that a single decision made in calm outweighs 100 made in chaos. Seneca wrote that to be everywhere is to be nowhere. The same applies to action. To act at every provocation is to accomplish nothing. The patient man, on the other hand, doesn't scatter his energy. He concentrates it. And when he finally moves, it's not reaction, it's precision, no spectacle, no fury, just inevitability. I once watched a quiet leader handle a betrayal that would have broken most men. He didn't lash out. He didn't defend himself. He waited. For weeks, he said nothing. His enemies grew bold, thinking his silence meant defeat. They spoke too loudly, revealed too much, made mistakes that no one forced them to make. When he finally acted, it wasn't with vengeance. It was with certainty. He removed them quietly, completely, leaving no trail behind. No gloating, no drama. Just a lesson written in calm efficiency. Time is the truest weapon of all. Because when you let others destroy themselves, you win without striking. From patience grows precision. And with precision comes distance, the quiet edge of isolation. Machiavelli once said that the wise ruler weakens his enemies not through confrontation, but through subtraction. The Stoics practice the same idea in the realm of emotion. Remove what feeds the fire, and the fire dies on its own. Power is not always taken by force. More often it's gained by quietly taking away what sustains your opponent, their allies, their confidence, their sense of control. A strong enemy is only dangerous when supported. Remove the support, and even the boldest crumble. Imagine a rival surrounded by loyal allies, feeding on their approval. You don't confront him directly. You don't make noise. You begin to pull threads, not swords. You let subtle tension grow among his circle, a whispered doubt here, a quiet absence there. You don't accuse, you imply. You don't divide, you allow division to unfold on its own. Soon the echoes of agreement fade. The crowd thins. His allies hesitate. Conversations grow colder, then silence. And that's when it happens. The unraveling. Even the proudest begins to question himself when left alone in an empty room. The pause in response, the shift in tone, the lack of support, it all corrodes the armor of arrogance. This is not cruelty, it's erosion. The slow wearing down of false confidence until the truth stands naked. Patience isn't passive. Isolation isn't malice. Both are acts of precision. The Stoics understood that the environment shapes the mind. You don't need to control people. You control the space they move within. You adjust the light, tilt the ground, shift the rhythm, and the next move becomes inevitable. Let doubt do your work. Let silence carry your message. Because when the enemy begins to wonder, why is no one standing with me? You've already won half the battle, and when the time comes for the final move, make it clean, quiet, without spectacle. You don't need to destroy their name, just dissolve their influence. Let them fade into irrelevance, not fall in flames. There's a dignity in that, a restraint that separates the disciplined from the vindictive. The Stoics believed that peace is not the absence of conflict, but the mastery of it. And mastery often ends with silence. At the end of the day, real dominance doesn't come from overpowering someone. It comes from ensuring that no one remains to protect them when you do. That's how patience and distance work together. Patience buys you time. Distance gives you clarity. Together, they form an invisible hand that moves everything without being seen. You don't chase. You don't rush. You don't force. You simply wait for the world to arrive where you already are. Time bends for the patient, and in that silence, the game ends on your terms. In this life, real strength is never found in noise. It lives in the quiet space between thought and action, in the pause where you choose discipline over impulse. You do not need to raise your voice to be heard or prove your worth to be respected. The one who moves with intention, who acts with clarity and restraint, commands attention without ever asking for it. That is the quiet victory the Stoics spoke of. The world will always be filled with those who chase validation and call it success. But you do not have to join them. Power is not about conquering others. It is about mastering yourself. The moment you stop reacting and start observing, the entire game begins to change. You see patterns, you sense motives. You gain control, not by force, but by understanding. Let patience become your shield. Let silence sharpen your mind. And let restraint remind you that not every battle deserves your energy. Every time you choose not to respond to provocation, you build strength that cannot be shaken. Every moment you pause instead of rushing, you move closer to mastery. What others mistake for indifference is actually focus. What they see as distance is preparation. You are not walking away from power. You are walking toward it on your own terms. Guard your peace as if it were sacred, because it is. Nothing you gain by losing yourself will ever be worth the cost. The world will test you with noise, with ego, with chaos. Stay calm. Stay deliberate. Let your presence speak louder than any reaction ever could. You do not have to announce your growth. It will reveal itself in your patience, in your decisions, in the quiet way you rise above what once pulled you down. If this message stirred something within you, leave a simple word below. Stay silent. Let it be your reminder that stillness is strength. And if you seek to keep growing, to learn how to move with calm precision and quiet strategy, take a moment to subscribe. Each lesson from here will take you deeper into the art of self-command and silent power. Remember, every time you choose restraint over reaction, you are not backing down. You are rising higher. The next lesson awaits you. Keep your focus. Stay unshaken. The calm path is where real power begins.